Good morning, as we go to the Chitas of today. Today is Wednesday. We're holding fourth reading in the portion of Mishalach. We're going to read today the Oz Yosher song that we sing every single day. So we're holding on chapter 14, verse number 26. And God said to Moshe, reach out your hand alayam on the water. The Yeshuva Mayim in the water will return. Mitzrayim on the Egyptians. Al Richbe on its rider and chariots of Rashav and on its horsemen. Yeshuva Mayim. Rashi says that they were standing upright like a wall, will return to its place to cover over the Egyptians. Yet Moshe started alayam and Moshe Rabbeinu stretched out his hand over the sea. And the sea returned in the early morning, to its original strength. Mitzrayim, and the Egyptians were fleeing towards it. And the Eibishter steered the Egyptians into the sea. At the time the morning approaches, Leisane means to its original strength. Because they were confused and crazed and running towards the water. They were mixed up. They didn't know where to go. And they were running towards it. Hashem, she says, as a person steers a pot of food and turns it from top to bottom. And that's what's on bottom is on top. And that's the Egyptians were bobbing up and down, being smashed into the sea. The Holy One, blessed be, kept them alive. So they would bear this torture. They would get repay back for all the pain and suffering that the Jewish people went through. Now she says by the renditive by Vishidek, which means steering in the Aramaic language. And the waters returned and it covered over the chariots, the Saproshim, and the horsemen, the whole Chel Parit, the entire force of Pharaoh. That was coming after them, Bayom in the waters, not even one survived. Now she says, so is the custom of the verse to write superfluous lamid, such as lichol, we find it many times, that Rashi brings down the different places in the Torah we see in Tanakh, the word lamid, we add a lamid, and it's not unusual to add that. Should have kept kol chelei. The lamed is many times added. Bnei Yisrael, verse 29, Bnei Yisrael, and the Jewish people went into the dry land in the midst of the sea. And the water was for them as a wall, miminam umismailam, from their right and from their left. Verse number 30, Vayesh Hashem b'yemahu Yisrael me'mitzrayim. And the Lord, the Eibishter, helped the Jewish people from the hand of Egypt. And then the Jewish people saw the Egyptians, they were dead at the edge of the river. Now she says, because the Eibishter did that, Shapolton Hayom Asfasi. The Eibishter, God made that all the Egyptians should be spit out onto the shore, so that the Jews would not say, just how we came out on this side, they went out on the other side. So maybe they survived like we survived. And now they saw them all dead. And the Jewish people saw the great hand. What God did in Egypt. And the people feared the Lord. And they believed in God. With Moshe Avdei and Moshe, his servant. Yashi said, what's a Yod HaGdolah, the great hand? A great and mighty deed that the hand of the Holy One, blessed be He, had performed. Many meanings of the term Yad, the hand of God. And they're all expression derived from the actual hand. And he who interprets it must adjust the wording according to the context. So you have to take the Yad. What is the meaning of the Yad over here? Every time that it says in the Torah, the Yad Hashem has to be put into the context of the situation. What does it mean over here? It means the might of God. Yad Hashem over here, the power of God in his hand. Everything's in his hand. Chapter 15, verse number 1. Oz Yashir Moshe Bnei Yisrael. Then the Jewish people, Moshe and the Jewish people sang as Hashir Azez this song. Hashem to God. And And they said, saying, Ashir al Hashem, will sing out to God, because he's exalted of exalted, very exalted. Sus v'reich v'ram bayam, a horse and its rider he cast into the sea. Now she says, we're not going to go through all these Rashis. A lot of these Rashis are just grammar or bring other psukim to prove the meaning of the word. Oz Yash, the future. Oz means the future. Oz, then he will sing. Future tense presents a problem because it should have said Oz Shar, then he sang. It says Oz Yash, then he will sing. Therefore, Rashi explains when Moshe Rabbeinu saw the miracle, it occurred to him to recite a song. And that means it didn't sing at that moment. Over here, we're talking about Moshe Rabbeinu who thought for a moment and said, wow, this is the time to sing a song. This because they went through 10 plagues, they didn't sing a song. And suddenly over here, they saw the song. So they came in the thought of Moshe Rabbeinu that now we're going to sing a song. And that's why it says in the future tense. It sang it the next couple of minutes, whatever it was. And now she brings down different places where we see that Oz, that it means in the future. I just want to go to all the way. I'm gonna skip down to the Medrash. The stages explain that Oz Yashim Moshe that we're here. We have our sage of blessed memory. We're skipping down to here. Over here, I can show it to you where I'm holding. Our sage of blessed memory state. From here is an allusion to the Torah of the resurrection of the dead. The Gemara says over here we have Tchias HaMesim. Oz Yashim means Moshe Rabbeinu will sing. I mean, the real song has not been sung yet. This was a prelude, this song, to the real song that when the Mitzvah Mashiach comes, and we know that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to be there. Well, it says that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to be there even before Mashiach comes. It's going to be Tchias HaMesim, the resurrection of the dead, for Moshe Rabbeinu and Tzaddikim of all history, that they were going to come down even before Mashiach comes. They're going to merit even the coming of Mashiach. So then, Oz Yashim Moshe, the Mitzvah, we're going to be with Moshe Rabbeinu as we go into the Geula, and Moshe Rabbeinu will then sing the song. So here we see. So it is in the future times with them all, except that Solomon, which was explained and implied, he sought to build and he did not build. One cannot say to explain this to other where it's written in the future, but it means that they occurred immediately. So Rashi says the simple meaning that they said he's sang it. Sang it. The simple meaning he sang it at this moment in time, but it also can mean Oz Yashir that Moshe Rabbeinu will sing it himself in the future. Rashi says to be interpreted according to the Targum, he was exalted over exalted. And exalting, the concept of God, Geya, is by the Eibishter alone. True exaltation is God. Everything else is a limited concept. Another explanation, a doubling of the verb, comes to say that he did something impossible for a flesh and blood person to do. When he fights with his fellow and overwhelms him, he throws him off his horse. But here, the horse and its rider cast into the sea, with the rider still on the horse. Anything that can be done by anyone else, described as Geos, to exalt. Like he who performed the Geos, we find later on in Isaiah. Similarly, throughout the entire song, we'll find repetitive patterns. We're going to find in many times in this Oz Yashir. Hashem Shmachama, Hashem Shemai. So we have these expressions. We're going to have these expressions in double expression. My strength, my praise are eternal. He is my salvation. The Lord is the master of war. The Lord is his name, and so on. All of them is all of them a concept of expression of exaltness. Another explanation, Gaya means to be exalted beyond all songs. For however I will praise him, there will still be more praises. This is unlike the manner of a human king who is praised for something he does not possess. But the Eibush, as much as you're going to praise him, really he deserves more praises. Just for the as she says, both were bound to one another. The water lifted them up high and brought them down as they were connected, the horse and the rider. Now she says the word Rama means to cast. And he brings down and he brings down the different pasuk Daniel, and then he says the Medrash, however, states that one verse says Rama Bayam, which means to cast up. One verse says Yada Bayam, that they were thrown down. This teaches us that the horse and the rider went up and then descended into the deep. They were thrown down. So they were like on a roller coaster in this sea. Ozi v'zimras yah, the Eibishter Ozi, the eternal strength. Ahili Yeshua, and his vengeance was my salvation. Zekeli, this is my God, Vanveyo, and I will beautify him. Elakei Avi, the God of my father, Barei Meno, and I shall uplift him, exalt him. Rashi says, Ozi v'zimra, how you translate Ozi v'zimra, until it surrendered my strength and my praise. Thus, the third Ozi, it means strength. V'zimra is my song. But I wonder the language of the text. And Rashi again brings all these expressions of Ozi v'zimra in different parts of Tanakh to prove it, that it means the strength and the song of God. Zekeli, Rashi says, this is my God. He revealed himself in his glory. He revealed himself in his glory to them, to the Jews, and they pointed to him. They point Zeh. Whenever it says the word Zeh, it means that you point with your finger, so to say. You say, this is. He pointed with their fingers to denote this by the sea. Even, and therefore the Gemara says, by the sea, even a maidservant perceived what the prophets did not perceive. There was a revelation of God at this crossing of the sea that even the prophets never saw. Veyu, Rashi says, Uncle is rendered as an expression of habitation. Nava, a tranquil dwelling. Another explanation, Van Veyu, is expression of beauty. Thus the phrase means, I will tell of his beauty and his praise to those who enter the world, such as when Israel is asked, how is your beloved more than any other beloved? Jews will say, my beloved is white and ruby. And the entire section of the Song of Songs, you'll find in Shir HaShirim, you'll find these expressions of Shlomo HaMelech when he talks about God. Like, hey, Avi, this is the God of my father. This is one, and I will exalt him. Like, hey, Avi, I'm not the beginning of the sanctity. I'm not the first to recognize his sanctity. The sanctity has been established and it remains with me. And his divinity has been upon me since the days of my forefathers. Hashem L'Shmachama, the God is the master of war. Hashem Shemai, the Lord is his name. She says Hashem Ishmacham is a man of war, which is inappropriate in reference to the deity. Therefore, Rashi renders a master of war. Like Naomi, husband, Ish Naomi. And so every instance, Torah says Ish, husband, Ish, your husband, is renders the concept as a master. Similarly, you shall be stronger to become a man. You should become a master, a gibber. Over here, that's why over here it translates Hashem Ish, doesn't say translate as a man. God is not a man or a woman. But God is a master. Hashem Shemai. His wars are not waged with weapons, but he wages battles with his name. That's the meaning. Hashem Ishmachama. Abish is a master of war, because God doesn't need to have any physical things to do his battle. He does it with the name of God. As David said to Goliath before fighting him, you come with a spear and a javelin, and I come to you with the name of God. Another explanation, the Lord, Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's what the Torah wants to know. Hashem Ishmachama. Hashem Shemai. Over here, the pasuk uses the word Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is interesting, because war is Gevurah. It's severity. You would use the name Elokim, but it uses the word Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is Chesed. What does the Torah want to tell us? You come in the name. The Torah wants to tell us that his name, even when he wages war and takes vengeance upon his enemy, he sticks to his behavior of having mercy. and his creatures and nourishing all those who enter the world. Unlike the behavior of the earthly king, when an earthly king is engaged in war, he turns away from all other affairs and does not have the ability to do both, to wage a war and to take care of other people. But the Eibishter can do everything. He can wage war and he can have emotion, he can have mercy and compassion and love to anything else. Mark verse number 4, and the Pharaoh chariots and his army were cast into the sea. And the elite of his officers sank into the Red Sea. Now she says, Yoda, we mentioned this before. Yoda means shadi, an expression of casting down, Yoda. And Rashi brings down a Yoda later on in Shemais. Yishtadi, he'll throw down. Umifchar, Rashi says the mifchar is a noun, like Merkav, concept of showing on the elite. Tuba bayam, Rashi says, ain't tiba, the word tubas is sinking, is used in Tanakh only when referring to a place where there is mud. Like Tabat, I have sunk into the muddy depths. And Jeremiah's Vayitba sank into the mud. This has informed us that the sea became like mud to recompose them, and the Egyptians, according to their behavior, namely that they slaved the Jews the work of entitled of clay and bricks, so they got stuck in the mud. Verse number 5, the depth covered them over, they descended in the depth to my Evan like a stone. She's covered them, Yachasumu is like Yachsum, Yud, it's grammar, to my Evan like a stone. Elsewhere in verse number 10, it says they sank like lead. Still elsewhere, it says that they devoured them like straw. So were they straw, stone, or lead? Solution is the most wicked were treated like straw, so it took them a long time to die, constantly tossing, rising, and falling. The average one was like a stone, went straight down, and the best of them went like lead, extremely fast down. Right hand, O Lord, is most powerful. Hashem, your right hand, crushed the enemy. Hashem, Rashi says, why say twice? Could have said one time, because we both talk about the right hand. When Israel performs the will of God, even the left hand becomes the right hand. And that's the meaning of this, that the right hand, even the left hand over here became the right hand. To save the Jews, and your second hand came to crush the foes. Seems to me, however, the very right hand also crushed the foes. Unlike the human being who cannot perform two kinds of work with the same hand, the Abish can do one hand with the same hand to save the Jews, and the same hand to destroy their enemies. Simple meaning of the verse is right hand, which is the strength with might. What is the work? Your right hand, O Lord, crushes the foe. Many verses resembling it, with parts of this verse are repeated. For behold, your enemies, O Lord, for behold, your enemies will perish. How long will the wicked, O Lord? So we see different places. You say it double. It's not a problem in the simple Pashat Pshat verse, because you find it many times a double expression. For us, O Lord, if not for us. I'll answer say the Lord, I'll answer the heavens to the Lord. I shall see. He has not been the Lord, he has not been the Lord, who has been the men who rose against us. Praise the Devorah. Praise. So you see many times that words are double in the pasuk, so it's not a problem in the simple pasuk. The Dori, she says over here, the Yud is extra, like Rabossi, Prince Sarasi. All these things you find in the pasuk that it says as plural. It said because the Yud is extra. You find that in many times in the Torah. Tirat, which means it constantly crushes and breaks the foe. Similarly to this, they crushed and broke the children of Israel. Another explanation, you're right now, which is the strength, and with might it breaks and strikes them. Verse number 7, and with your great pride, you tear down those who rise up against you. You send forth your burning wrath, it devours them like straw. Now she says, what does it mean, with great pride? The hand alone crushes the throat, and when it raises with it great pride, it will definitely tear down those who rise up against him. And it's with this great pride alone, his enemies are torn down. How much more so when he sends upon them his burning wrath will consume them. The Eibishter destroys their enemies with the goincha. He surely destroys their enemies with his hitting. Haris, you'll always tear down those who rise up against you. And who are those who rise up against God? These are the ones who rise up against the Jewish people. So it says in Tehillim, behold, your enemies stare. And what are they staring? Against your people. They plot cunningly. So we see the pasuk puts the two together. Going against the Jewish people is going against God. For this reason, he calls them the enemies of God. Those that are the enemies of the Jews are the enemies of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's why he says, against you means against the Jews. And with the breath of his nostrils, the water were heaped up. They were running, water stood like a wall. Noislim, the depths, Kafu, congealed, Tahimus Belevyam in the heart of the sea. Ash says, part of this Rashi, Ash said the breath which comes out of two nostrils of the nose. Scripture speaks automatically about the God. God doesn't have nostrils. God doesn't have a breath. The model of a mortal king, in order to enable the ears of people to hear it, to understand God's anger, as usually occurs in the humans, so that you should be able to understand the matter. Namely, that when a person becomes angry, wind comes out of his nostrils, like smoke went out of his nostrils. And similarly, from the wind of his nostrils, they will be destroyed. And this is what the Torah says: for the sake of knowing God, I defer my anger. I lengthen the breath of my nose. This is what it means when a person's anger subsides. His breathing becomes longer. When he becomes angry, his breath becomes shorter. And it will, for my praise, I restrain my wrath for you. I put a ring on my nose in front of the anger of the wind, so that they should not come out. This is a reason for you means for your sake. The word echtem is like the expression of the Mishnah, a durmidi with a nose ring. It's a Gemara Shabbos. This is how it appears to me. And concerning every expression of af, harein, af, in the Bible, which are expression of anger, I say this: expression of chari af, anger was kindled, is like the word chara, in my bones dried up with heat. Chara is an expression of fire and burning, where the nostrils heat up and burn at the time of anger. Chara, burning, is at the root of the word to burn. Like the word rotza, in the will, is the root rotza, the desire. Likewise, chama, expression of heat, mimus. Therefore, it says, and the anger, burnt within him. And when the anger subsided, it says that his mind, nikras died to his mind cooled. That's all expression to understand. Just like we can understand in ourselves the concept of anger, when we get angry and when we cool down. What do you mean the water heaped up? Onkelos renders this word as an expression of cunning, adimumus. According to the clarity of Scripture, however, it's an expression related to stacking up. The water was stacked up. The running water stood erect like a wall. Proves this. Nermu, the waters will heat up from the heat of the wind that came out of your nose. The water dried up and became like piles of heap of grain, stacked, which is all to the nade. Taigam unclis got kosher like a wall. Nade, again, this is all grammar. Actually, nade is a wall. The interesting word. Nade is an expression of heaping and gathering. Again, so Rashi says the interesting word that the Torah used nade as a wall. But they use the regular wall over here. Torah wants to say that it looked like like it was stacked up one on top of the other. Hafu, congealed, like a curdle thing, like cheese, curdled cheese. Depths that hardened and became like stone. And the water hurled the Egyptian against the stone. The Olamite, and he fought against the Egyptians like a harshness. So in some places, the water turned into a hard object. The Lev Yam, in the heart of the sea, in the strongest part of the sea. Customary for the Torah to speak in this manner, and as you see, different places where it's expressed. Amar Oyev. Verse number 9, the enemy said, Asig, I will pursue. Achalig shalom. Edif, I will pursue. Asig, I will overtake. Achalig shalom, I will share the beauty. Timaleima nafshi, my desire will be filled from them. Orech chaybi, I will draw my sword. Shem yadi, my hand will impoverish them. Now she says, Amar Oyev, the enemy, the Pharaoh, said to his people, and he enticed them with his word, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will share the plunder with my officers and my servants. Timleima means equivalent to a smaller man will be filled of them. Nafshi, my soul, my spirit, my will. Not be just surprised. The one word speaking of for two words. Timleima instead of timale mehem. Timleima means I'll be filled from them. Because there are many such words in Tanakh that you find that one word means two words. Orech Charbi, Rashi says, I will empty my sword. I will draw and become one, empties the sheet by drawing his sword and remains empty. The expression of emptiness, emptying is appropriate, and it came to pass that they were empty. And they shall empty, as in different places in the Torah. Do not say that the expression of emptiness in this example does not apply what comes out of its container, but instead it applies to the sheet, stacked vessel from which it came out, and not the sword or the wine that comes out of the vessel. And thus, force of interpretation of other Kadri is like the language of he who armed by Yodik trains his men. Claiming that it means is I will arm myself with my sword. To this I answer that we find an expression of emptying also applies that which comes out. Oil poured forth is called turak in the Song of Songs. And he has poured out turak from one vessel to another vessel. It's written the vessel was not empty, but the wine was poured out from one vessel. Now, similarly, we saw so also communion over here. I emptied my sword. It's not only talking about the sheath that becomes empty when you take out the sword, but it's talking about the sword itself that comes out and empties the sheath. The Shema, now she says, my hand impoverishes them, expression of poverty. To the Shema is poverty, which is gracious, be destitute, like the Lord impoverished and makes rich. Shafta berucha kisamayam. He blew with your wind, and it covered them. The sea covered them. So look at they sank like lead. Amayim in the water, Adidim with the powerful waters. And now she says, Nashafta is blowing. Salalu is the sink. Kaferes is lead. Micha Mecha Be'elam Hashem, who is like among the powerful, oh God. Micha Mecha, who is like you? Neder Bakodesh, powerful in the holy places. Noida Sihila Sefelas, to the awesome for praises, who makes wonders, does wonders. The Elim, Rashi says over here, means the Chazokim, in the powerful ones. Noida Sihila, Rashi says, who is awesome, the one who to recite, you are awesome. Noida Sihila, Sihila is to praise. You are awesome. You are the awesome one that we should praise. You incline your right hand, the earth swallowed them up. Actually, what does that mean? Holy One, blessed be He, inclines His hands. The wicked perish and fall because they are placed in His hand, and they fall when He inclines it. Similarly, the Torah says, the Lord shall turn His hand, and the helper shall stumble, and the help shall fall. This can be compared to a glass vessel placed in a person's hand, and if he inclines his hand a little bit and falls, it breaks. Every person's in his hand, and when the wicked ones, the just drops. That's what happens. They drop like lead, or they drop like a stone. From here we deduce that they merited to be buried. Egyptians ultimately were buried, swallowed by they were all sunk into the ground. So they had that merit, and for only one reason they merited that, because they said the statement Hashem HaTzadik, the Lord is the righteous one. So ultimately, in their history, they had a positive, truthful expression that God is the righteous one. Because of that alone, they merited at least to be buried. Your loving kindness, you led the people you redeemed. You led them with your might to your holy abode. Nahalta is Lashon Menahel, expression of leading. Onkelos, however, renders an expression of carrying, bearing, but he's not exact. Explained according to with the Hebrew, he doesn't. Very interesting, Rashi. In general, he loves Onkelos. Always brings down Onkelos, but he also sometimes says Onkelos doesn't fit the simple meaning of the verse. And even though Onkelos translated this way, this is not the simple meaning. Shoah your gods, and people heard, and they trembled. They shuddered beside them, and the inhabitants of Philistia. Now she says, Yegazim Miskazim, they became trembled. Yeshuva Plushes, they trembled since they slew the children of the Ephraim, who hastened to end the exile. This is a story in the Medrash. Medrash says that the tribe of Ephraim, majority of the tribe left, 300,000 left before time. They decided to pack their bags and leave. And they came to Gaza, the Philistine, and they were destroyed. And here, the Abish comes to bring retribution on them. And this brought down Devayam, Vahorgan, Gas, and they slew the children of the Gas, the person of Gaza. They killed the children of Ephraim. And the chieftains of Edom were startled. As for the powerful men of Moav, Zemorad, trembling sized them, Amoigu, all the inhabitants of the Knam melted away. Rashi says, now they had nothing to fear at all, because the Jews were not advancing upon them. Rather, they trembled because of the grief that they were grieving and the suffering because of the glory. They were still anti-Semites who hated the Jews, not because they were worried the Jews were going to bother them. Jews let them, they were not interested in Moav. Later says later, Moav, leave them alone. But nevertheless, they hated Jews. That look how the Jews are being victorious hasn't changed. Now, Moigu, Rash says, Moigu is a phrase of the raindrops that dissolve. The inhabitants of the Knat said, they are coming upon us to annihilate us and to possess our land. My dread and my fright falls upon them. The arm of your greatness, may they become like a stone. Until your people crosses over, O Lord. Adyaver Amzukanisa, until this nation that you have acquired crosses over. Rashi says, Tip Aleim a Masa from the distance, a Fachad, for those that are nearby. Adyaver, you can look at the tiger, over until crossover. Kanisa means the one who you love more than other nations, similar to an article of purchase, Kanisa, for a high price, which is dear to the person who purchased it, the Abish to purchase the Jewish nation. You bring them and plant them over the mountain of your heritage, directly towards Alta Hashem, your the habitation which you made, O Lord. Mikdash Hashem, the sanctuary, O Lord, which your hand founded. Divi Rashi says, over here, Moshe Rabbeinu prophesies that he would not enter the land of Israel. Therefore, it does not say, you shall bring us. Here's I should have read that they did not enter, they would not enter the land. Indeed, this is what it states, the sons will enter the land, not the fathers. Although the Rukiah of the spies have not yet been pronounced, Moshe Rabbeinu will bring them, won't bring us. We're not going to come into this land. And that's why it says, he'll bring them, he'll bring our children into the land. So here he prophesies that this generation is not going into the land of Israel. Temple below is directly opposite the temple above, which you made. Over here, that means in essence, the temple was already built. This is before the temple was built in the world, but the temple was in heaven. Mikdash Hashem. Over here, the sanctuary, Mikdash, is over the Zakiv Gadol. Over here, you see the note. I'll talk about the note on top of the Dalet. It's a separate word to separate it from the word Hashem. Following it, the verse thus means sanctuary, which you founded. O Lord, the temple is beloved, since whereas the world was created, one hand, as I say, even my hand laid the foundation of the earth. Sanctuary were built by two hands. Rashi's, wow, beautiful Rashi's. So much to learn from these Rashis. The Havish says over here Moshe Rabbeinu is prophesying about the Beis Hamikdash. The Havish that created the Beis Hamikdash with both. He created the world with one hand, but he created the Beis Hamikdash with both hands. Time the Lord will reign in all eternity. The future, when the ruling powers will be his. Talk about Mashiach comes, and then you'll see both hands of God. Revelation of both hands of God connected to the Beis Hamikdash, which is connected to the Jewish nation. Shem Yimlech Le'elam Vad, and the Lord will reign for entirety. Le'elam Vad, this is an expression of entirety, as the Vav Le'elam Vad, the part of the root. Therefore, it's a patal, it's a grab. Kivas was body beautiful of Rachmayam when the Pharaoh and his horses came in, and his chariots came into the water. Yahshua Hashem Aleim Esme'ayam, the Abishtim brought upon the waters, turned the waters upon them. Bnei Yisrael, but the Jewish people, they walked in the dry land, B'Seichayam, in the midst of the sea. Kivasus, Rashi says, when they came. Verse 20. Think of Miriam and Miriam, the prophetess, sister of Aaron. She took the timbrel in her hands. All the women came out with her, with the tufim and bachelas, with the timbrels and with dances. Here we see Rashi says that we call the Torah calls Miriam Hanaviyah. Shemin was also a Navi, and Aaron was also a Navi. But over here the Torah says Miriam Hanaviyah. Miriam was a Navi. Echenes number, where was her prophecy? She was known as Aaron's sister before Moshe Rabbeinu was born. He told her mother would be destined to bear a son who will save Israel, as is found in Gemara. So another explanation, it's written Aaron's sister, since Aaron risked his life when she was afflicted later with Tzaras, and she's called Aaron's sister, even though she was Moses' sister. As Atef, this is a type of musical instrument. Betufim, righteous women of that generation were so certain that the Holy One, blessed be He, would perform miracles, that they took all these timberlands, and that's why the Rebbe asked every woman should have a what do they call those things? What do they call that? Those things, timberlands, or not? What are they called? Tambourines. Thank you very much. Tambourines. Miriam said, Shir Hashem, let's sing out to the Lord, because He's very exalted. The horse and his rider He cast into the sea. Ash says Moshe Rabbeinu sang with the men, and they answered after him, and Miriam said the song with the woman, and they repeated after her. Isa Moshe Sam Yamsuf, and Moshe Rabbeinu led the Israel from the Red Sea. They went into the desert of Shur. They went 3 days by Midbar, the desert. They could not find water. Now she says, Vayisa Moshe. Moshe led the Jewish people because he made the Israel journey. He led them away from against their will. For the Egyptian had adorned all their steeds with ornaments, gold and silver and precious stones. And the Jews were finding it at the sea. The plunder at the sea was great than the plunder of Egypt. It says, I'll make you rows of gold with studs of silver. Therefore, he led them. He said, it's time to go. Stop collecting all this jewelry. Time to go. Let's move on. And they came to Mara. They couldn't drink from the bitter waters because they were bitter. Therefore, they called it Mara. There's a grammar Rashi. Let's continue. And the people complained against Moshe. Manishta, why are we going to drink? Rashi again, it's grammar Rashi, it's Lashon Nifo. Yitzhak Elavai, and they called out to God. Hashem ate the Abisha through, so to say, they've instructed him to consume the piece of a wood, take a piece of wood, throw it into the water. The water will come sweet. There he gave them a statute and an ordinance, and from there they were tested. Rashi says he gave them the section of the Torah so that they would be busier than seven. Jews, they were complaining. He wanted to learn Torah. They wanted to get to they wanted to get this. Rashi translates the whole thing. The Jewish people wanted to get to Matan Torah quicker than the Abishtu wanted to get to the Matan. So they were complaining for water. They were complaining for Torah. And therefore, he said, okay, I'll teach you already even before Matan Torah, which will be in 50 days, less than 50 days. It's already passed, 7 days already. But I will teach you now Torah. I'll teach you now some parts of the Torah. So he gave them the law of Shabbos, Paraduma, Vidinin, and all the laws of all the Dinin, all the jurisprudence, and all the laws between man and man. So he gave them a mara. 10 days after going to Mitzrayim, he gave them already laws that can keep them busy for a very long time. So the Jewish people asked. That's why it came sweet. That's the whole meaning of those things. Gave Eitz Chaim the Machazikim Ba. Abishta gave him the Torah. Beautiful Rashi. So tested the people, saw the stiff-necked they were, and they did not consult Moshe with respectful language. Peter Gamba mercy that they have water to drink, they complained. He said to them, if you hearken to the verse of God, you do what is proper in the eyes of the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and you'll hearken to his mitzvahs, and you'll follow all the statutes. All the sicknesses that you have seen in Mitzrayim, I will not put upon you. Because I am God. So already he gave them a lot of laws. Yeshamaya Tishma, acceptance of the law, they should accept upon themselves. Tasu Hiasiyah, that means the performance of the law. Azanta, that means that you should incline your ears, meticulously understand the law. Trust me, if he gave them the law of Shabbos, this was a meticulous law, 39 malachas and everything that involves in it. So this was extremely difficult law. These are the things that are decreed by the king without any apparent rationalization, which is the evil inclination tries to find fault, saying, what is the sense of this prohibition? Why were they prohibited? For example, a prohibition of wearing shatnez, mixture of wool and linen, eating treif, pork, the ritual of the red cow, which he gave them right now, the paraduma, le'asim alecha, and if I do bring sickness upon you, it is as if it has not been brought, for I, the Lord, will heal you. This is a midrashic interpretation, according to the simple meaning, explaining, for I, the Lord, I am your physician, and I teach you the Torah, the mitzvahs, in order that you be saved from them, an illness. Like a physician who says to a person, do not eat things that will cause you to relapse into a grip of illness. This warning refers to listening closely to the commandments. The Torah says it shall be a healing to you for your navel. Beautiful. Oz Yasha, we like. That completes the Chumash for today. We now go to the 21st chapter of Talmud. Alter Rebbe gave an example of speech. Alter Rebbe is going to tell you the example is not really a good example, because our speech and God's speech are not the same. So whatever we gave an example of speech, we should be able to deduce from that when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the able to create, God created the world through speech. If our speech is nothing to him, then surely his speech is, because there's no comparison in the analogy. That's how the Alter Rebbe says. It's chapter 21. Now, by the nature of divine order, it's not like the human being, creature of flesh and blood. Therefore, human terms cannot adequately describe divine qualities. Even Ashi said today, able to get angry, God is a man of a war, all these expressions, these are human expressions, and therefore you can't really use it on God, even though we do use it on God, but it's a dust that we should understand. Not that it's a good connection, not that it's a good to describe God in these kind of ways. It's just that the human being, the Abishta didn't want to talk in sign language. He wanted to talk in the words of human. The Gemara says, Torah talks in the way of humans. So why did Torah talk in the way of humans? So that a human being can understand like a human being. He does not know secrets over here. No sign language, you can push and understand. A 5-year-old kid can understand the Chumash, because the Torah talks like a human being. We got angry, God got angry, God frustrated, his nostrils, etc. So too, the Alter Rebbe says, when it comes to speech, we said God created the world through speech. So we can try to compare speech of man to speech of God. Can't compare it. Why? Oh, the medaber dibur. When a man says something, the breath, everything comes from your breath. That's the way we speak. Bring our breath that goes through our mouth, 5 parts of our mouth, that comes out words. So when a man says something, the breath of the spoken word may be sensed and perceived as an independent entity, separate from the source. It's something itself. I take the breath and I bring it out. It's not me. It's my breath. It's still my speech. Which is namely the 10 intellectual emotional faculties of the soul itself. So when I speak, I really don't feel my chesed, my gevura. I don't really feel that's my soul speaking. I feel I speak. like anybody else. It's a breath of man. So while still encapsulated in its source, the word is utterly nullified. However, when it's spoken and leaves its source, it takes on an entity of its own. This is true, however, with regard to human speech. And that's why we have an expression, talk is cheap. Because how can a person say talk is cheap? That's why the Torah says the opposite. When a person says that a person should be very careful what he speaks. And he should hold the speech as holy. Because speech comes from your soul. It's not just that you speak that you speak. No. A person should be extremely careful with the words he says, but it doesn't usually work that way. We don't feel that my speech comes from the essence of my being. My speech comes from my breath. Baruch Hashem, the Eibishter created that my breath goes through fire articulations of my mouth and it comes out with words. Can't say that with God. God, that's what the unity of God means. But by God, but the speech of God, heaven forbid to separate from God himself and divinity. He ain't dava because again, there's nothing outside of him. This is a deep concept. Ain't dava chutz. There's no the Eibishter, again, everything exists within him. There's not a concept of God as something that is separate from him. It's impossible. Nothing can be separate from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Less asab poneminei, and there's no place devoid of him. So his speech is always contained within him. When the Eibishter speaks, that's why the Devar Hashem, that's why the Alter Rebbe is explained to you that as the Devar Hashem, the word of God is part of God right now. Therefore, his speech is not like our speech. Just as obviously his thought is not our thought. As it's written, that my thought is not your thought. So it says that so my ways are higher than your ways. You can't compare your ways, even though I talk in your ways and I talk in your thought and I talk in your speech. It's not the same. Similarly, God's speech is different than human speech. If divine speech is indeed never separate from God, how can it be prescribed as speech at all? Human speech constitutes of communication only because the spoken word becomes separate from speaking. Thought, by contrast, becomes because it remains within one's soul, mind. It's hidden by all, but the thinker himself. Since nothing ever becomes separate from God, the term speech seemingly provides us with no understanding at all the nature of divine communication. An explanation. So how can you even say God speaks? Because it's not speech. It's him. So it's not God speaks, it's God, according to this explanation. The explanation, the Alter Rebbe states, speech is distinguishable by two characteristics. Speech has two concepts. Number one, it reveals that which was previously hidden in the speaker's thought. That's why we speak. Number two, it becomes separate from its source. Speech has two things. I speak what I have in myself, and at the same moment, once I said it, it becomes separate from me. That's why there's an expression in Pirkei Avos. Achomim hizaru b'devareich. Smart, you would be careful what you say, because you be careful what you're revealing. Because once you reveal it, it now becomes part of the person who takes it, the person who hears it. So only the former characteristics of speech or human speech is knowledge of divine. So that's not down to them. It's the first part. It reveal what is the meaning of speech of God is revelation. It doesn't have the second quality of separation. It reveals to the creation that which was hidden within godliness. That's the concept of speech, revelation. As you connect yourself with the Alter Rebbe, you'll see the Alter Rebbe says this concept in many things, the concept of revelation. To understand the word of God is to understand God's revelation. To understand the Torah is to understand God's revelation to you, to humankind, or to the world. And that's Alter Rebbe. Let's learn it in the Alter Rebbe's words. God's speech is called speech only in order to illustrate the quality of revelation. The reason why a person speaks in this world is to reveal to those that are listening which was hidden in his thought. So too in the infinite light of God, the revelation, the coming out of this light, and the power, the revelation, the chayus, from the hidden into the revelation, so that they'll be able to create the worlds, to give them life. That's why it's called dibur. That's the only analogy that it has to human speech. Speech is revelation. If I wouldn't speak, you would not know what's in my mind. So the Eibishter revealed himself, and through this revelation creates worlds. In this case, the audience is created being, which from our own perspective at least is separate from God. And that's why we look at it as a separate thing. We look at dibur as separate because we translate dibur, we translate speech in the concept of not only revelation, but separation. And now you understand why physicality, physical beings, physicality in general, feels independent. Because dibur, to us, has two qualities, revelation and separation. But to God, there's no separation. It's impossible separation. It's only revelation. And so therefore, there's no unity but by God. Because by God, there's no concept of separation. And there is total disunity by us because dibur is separation for us. And these revelations, divine light, life force, these are the 10 comprised of 10 utterances that the Mishnah says. The Eibishter created the world with 10 utterances, recorded in the Torah. Namely, and God said, let there be light, let there be earth, sprout forth, and so on and so forth. Which the world was created. And so too the rest of the Torah. It's all in dibur. It's all in speech. All in speech. The whole Torah, the whole Tanakh, the whole prophecies, Ksuvim, all the writings, Tehillim, everything, all the prophets that they took, right? All speech, all came through words. They're called speech, even though they are not revealed for the purpose of creation, since they do represent divine revelation. Torah, all Torah is not creating anything. Torah, limit Torah, learning of Torah, which are proper received in the prophetic vision. Hence, when we refer to God's revelation as speech, analogy extends only to speech as revelation and the communication, not speech as something separate from the speaker, an idea which is not applicable to godliness. But that's the way we need to learn Torah, revelation. We're learning Torah to reveal, to be able to reveal to us, to ourselves, to reveal to the world, or revelation of godliness. Not a separation, chas v'shalom. Not a separation. That's why, in essence, the Gemara says you can learn Torah and you can become egotistical, and you can learn Torah and become humble. Depends why you're learning it for. Depends the reason you're learning it for. Are you learning it for separation, for yourself, your own glory? Separate. I'm going to become a big Talmid Chacham. It's about me. I'm learning Torah for separation. Am I learning Torah? Revelation. Reveal God in the world. And that's where the Torah can be a Samach Chaim. A Samach Mavis, the Gemara says, Torah can be a potion of life, because I'm learning to reveal God in the world. There's no greater life than the revelation of God in the world, where I can learn a chas v'shalom for egotistical reasons, for selfish reasons, to use it out to beat others and to use it out to hurt others. And then it's a sam hamavos. And then it's a potion of death, for sure. Because it's about selfishness, it's about separation, division. Torah brings division between Jews, or even division between us and the world, then you're learning it wrong. Torah is about revelation. Torah is about unity. Torah is about beauty, about love, about passion, about peace, about unity between us and each other and the world, between us and God. It's all about unity. It's all about revelation. And when we have revelation, we have the concept of revealed godness in the world. It's all about unity. That's the way we need to learn Torah. Danger is, once the Torah talks in the language of man, we can take it as a manly concept, chas v'shalom, and then we take it through the eyes of separation. Because speech is a separation. The second I speak, not mine anymore. That's the most negative thing of Lashon Hara. The second I speak, not mine anymore. It belongs to me. That's the power of speech. Even it says, speech, Solomon says, speech can be either give you life, the opposite of life. Same reason. With speech can give you life if you talk positive, if you talk godly, if you have only a pure expression. If chas v'shalom, you have the opposite. You have now spewed evil in the world that you cannot bring back, maybe. Chas v'shalom. You cannot bring back because it has been given over to somebody else. That person will continue it maybe, and say you said it, or didn't say you said it, whatever. It becomes separation. It becomes a samachayim mavos. It becomes the opposite of life. Okay, beautiful Tanya of today. I must say, long chitas. Today is the 14th day of the month, which is chapter 72, 73. 2 chapters. If you do those 2 chapters in Psalms, you do the chitas. Beautiful chitas of today. Invite you all in Mir Shem tomorrow, 8 o'clock. We'll continue to learn the chitas of the day. I wanted us to remind everybody about the Tu B'Shvat Seder. That's tomorrow night. We're closing it up today. So if you are interested in participating, please book it today, either by going on the internet or by calling up the office, 487-2934, 561-487-2934. We are closing it today. Have a wonderful and beautiful, happy day.